The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. John Miller straightened his blue diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. As Earth's ambassador, he had attended dozens of these meetings, but something felt different today. The Zarkonians had been unusually rigid in the negotiations over the past week. Communications check complete, Ambassador. We're live to Earth in 30 seconds, said Lisa Wright, adjusting her earpiece. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, confirming that billions of humans across the solar system would soon be watching. Thank you, Lisa. Let's hope today is productive, John replied, forcing a smile. Proxima Station hung in the emptiness of space, a neutral meeting ground between Earth and the Zarkonian Empire. Through the viewport, John could see the stars and the faint outline of the Zarkonian flagship in the distance. The metal conference table reflected the overhead lights as 6 chairs waited for their occupants. The door slid open with a soft hiss. 4 Zarkonians entered, their scaled skin shimmering under the lights. Chief Diplomat Kraz led them, his yellow eyes fixed on John. Ambassador Miller, Kraz said, his translator making his voice sound almost human. Shall we begin? Lisa nodded to John. They were now broadcasting live. Thank you for meeting today, John began, his voice calm and measured. We believe our discussion about the mining rights in the Ta-Ceti system can be resolved peacefully. Kraz's face showed no emotion. Indeed, peace is always preferable. On the screens around the room, data about trade agreements scrolled past. John was explaining a point about resource sharing when a small red light began flashing on Lisa's panel. Ambassador, she whispered, her face suddenly pale. Something's happening. We're receiving emergency signals from New Terra Colony. John tried to keep his expression neutral, not wanting to alert the Zarkonians. New Terra was Earth's largest off-world settlement in the Ta-Ceti system, home to over 50,000 civilians. Excuse me, he said. We may need to. The screens in the room suddenly changed. Instead of diplomatic data, they showed live feeds from New Terra. Buildings were collapsing. People were running, screaming. Fire and smoke filled the air. What is this? John demanded, standing up so quickly his chair fell backward. Kraz didn't move. A demonstration. The room fell silent as everyone watched the screens. The main colony dome had been breached. Men, women, and children were being pulled into the vacuum of space. The cameras caught it all: the terror, the helplessness, the bodies. You're killing them, Lisa gasped, her hands shaking. Those are civilians. 50,000 humans, Kraz said calmly. A small price to establish understanding between our species. John lunged across the table, but 2 Zarkonian guards caught him. You planned this. You knew we were broadcasting. Of course, Kraz replied. The galaxy must see what happens to those who challenge Zarkonian interests. Lisa's fingers flew across her panel, copying the broadcast data. She slipped a small drive into her pocket, while the Zarkonians focused on restraining John. This is an act of war, John said, his voice breaking as he watched more explosions rock the colony. Kraz stood. No, Ambassador, this is an execution. Your kind expanded too quickly, took too much. Consider this a correction. One of the Zarkonians noticed Lisa's actions and moved toward her. The human is saving data. Time to go, Lisa whispered to herself. She pressed an emergency button under the console. The station's emergency protocols activated, sealing off sections. Lisa ducked under a closing door, the data drive secure in her pocket. Behind her, she heard John shouting. Earth won't stand for this, were the last words she heard from him as the door sealed. Running down the corridor, alarms blaring around her, Lisa knew she had to get this footage back to Earth. 50,000 lives had just been lost on live broadcast, and she was the only survivor carrying proof of who was responsible. Lisa Wright's shuttle landed at Earth Central Command 26 hours after her escape from Proxima Station. Her hands still shook as guards escorted her through the sleek metal hallways. News of the New Terra massacre had spread across every human settlement. The streets outside were filled with angry crowds demanding action. The doors to the emergency council chamber slid open. Around a large oval table sat the 12 members of Earth's United Defense Council. President Kate Douglas stood at the head, her face grim. Lisa noticed the dark circles under everyone's eyes. No one had slept since the attack. "Ms. Wright," President Douglas said, "we're glad you made it back." Lisa placed the data drive on the table. "I have the complete broadcast, including the moments before the attack. The Zarkonians planned everything. They wanted it to be seen." A technician took the drive and plugged it into the room's system. The wall screens came to life, showing the final moments at Proxima Station. The council members watched in silence as John Miller was restrained by Zarkonian guards. "Ambassador Miller?" Admiral Henry Grant asked. Lisa shook her head. "They took him. I don't know if he's alive." The Admiral slammed his fist on the table. He was a tall man with gray at his temples, and his voice carried the weight of 40 years in Earth's Navy. 50,000 civilians, he said, and they broadcast it like it was some kind of show. "We need to hit back now, before they attack another colony." Susan Clark, Earth's chief diplomat, leaned forward. Her calm voice contrasted with the Admiral's anger. "We should try one more diplomatic channel," she said. "The other alien councils might condemn this action if we show them this evidence. And how many more will die while we wait?" Admiral Grant demanded. "The Zarkonians called this an execution, not a negotiation tactic." President Douglas raised her hand for silence. "I've heard from every Earth colony in the past day. Our people are afraid, but they're also united. We've never seen such cooperation between the colonies." She turned to a screen showing a map of known space. "The Zarkonians believe we're weak because we've been peaceful. They don't know what humans are capable of when provoked." The president pressed a button, and the image changed to show military schematics. "Project Sentinel has been in development for 8 years. We've hidden our true capabilities, knowing this day might come." Lisa looked at the images with surprise. Earth had been building advanced ships and weapons in secret, far beyond what they had shown to other species. "We will not seek total war," President Douglas continued, "but we will show the Zarkonians that attacking humans has consequences." Admiral Grant, activate the Sentinel fleet. The Admiral nodded and began sending orders through his tablet. "Miss Clark," the President said to the diplomat, "prepare evidence packages for the Galactic Council. Make sure they understand we didn't start this, but we will finish it." Susan Clark nodded, though her eyes showed concern. President Douglas turned to a man sitting quietly at the end of the table. "Commander Martinez, your team will lead the first response." Commander Eric Martinez stood. He was younger than most in the room, but his reputation in special operations was unmatched. "Yes, Madam President. What are our orders?" "Surgical strikes on Zarkonian military targets only. No civilian casualties. Show them we can hit them anywhere, but we choose our targets with precision." The commander nodded. "When do we leave?" "Immediately. The U.S. Defiant is ready." As the meeting ended, Lisa found herself walking beside Commander Martinez toward the hangar bay. "They said you have knowledge of Zarkonian communications," he said. "Yes, I worked in their sector for 3 years." "Then pack your things. You're coming with us." His eyes were determined. 50,000 people deserve justice, and we're going to deliver it. Lisa thought of the people she'd seen die on New Terra, of Ambassador Miller's last words. "Earth won't stand for this," she repeated softly. "No," Commander Martinez agreed as they walked toward the waiting ship. "We won't." The U.S. Defiant moved silently through space, its experimental engines leaving no trace. The ship was smaller than most military vessels, but packed with technology that had been kept secret for years. Commander Eric Martinez stood on the bridge, watching his crew prepare for their mission. "Status report," he said. Tactical Officer Alan Ross looked up from his station. His fingers moved quickly across the glowing controls. Cloaking systems at full power, Commander. Zarkonian patrols have no idea we're here. Good. Olivia, how are the new weapons systems? Engineer Olivia Johnson nodded confidently. Ready, sir. The pulse cannons can disable their ships without destroying them, just like you wanted. Commander Martinez turned to the final member of his core team. Peter, what about their defense network? Peter Lee, the ship's AI specialist, displayed a map on the main screen. I've identified 3 key communication hubs. If we take them out in this sequence, we can blind a third of their fleet. Martinez studied the map. And civilian casualties? 0, sir. These are purely military installations. Lisa Wright entered the bridge. She had spent the last 12 hours studying updated Zarkonian communication patterns. The crew had given her space, knowing she had witnessed the beginning of the massacre firsthand. I have something, she said. The Zarkonians change their security codes every 6 hours, but they follow a pattern. If we time our strikes right, we can get in and out during their code change. Martinez nodded. Good work. He turned to address the entire bridge crew. Listen up. In 6 hours, we carry out the first strike in what the President is calling Operation Remember. Our mission is precise and clear. Show the Zarkonians that humans can hit them anywhere, anytime. He pointed to the map. These 3 targets control Zarkonian military communications in this sector. We take them out, and their ships won't be able to coordinate their movements. The crew members exchanged determined looks. Many had friends or family among the 50,000 lost on New Terra. What about Ambassador Miller? Asked Lisa. Intelligence believes he's being held on the Zarkonian homeworld, Martinez replied. We'll get to him, but first we need to weaken their military position. In the hours that followed, the crew prepared. They checked weapons, studied attack plans, and ran simulations. Some wrote messages to family members, not knowing if they would return. Others sat in silence, looking at images from New Terra. As the ship approached the first target, Martinez called for a brief moment of silence. 50,000 lives, he said quietly. Remember why we're here. The Defiant moved into position above a large space station orbiting a barren moon. It was shaped like a star, with communication arrays extending from its center. Beginning silent approach, Alan said. Their sensors show nothing. Weapons ready, added Olivia. Martinez gave the order. Begin the operation. The ship's new pulse cannons fired, sending waves of energy that overloaded the station's systems without destroying it. Lights across the station flickered and died. Direct hit, Alan reported. Their communications are down. Sending the message now, said Lisa, typing quickly. On every remaining screen in the Zarkonian station, the same words appeared, 50,000 lives. We remember. As alarms began to sound on the station, the Defiant was already moving toward its next target. 2 more to go, Martinez said. Then we moved to Phase 2. Across human space, news of the first successful strike spread quickly. People gathered around screens, watching as Earth finally showed its strength. For the first time since the massacre, there was hope. On the Zarkonian homeworld, Supreme Commander Vextor received the news with disbelief. Impossible, he growled. How did they get past our defenses? His advisor looked nervous. The humans may have been hiding their capabilities. Vextor's eyes narrowed. Find their ship and destroy it. The humans need to learn their place. But the U.S. Defiant was already gone, moving like a ghost through Zarkonian space, preparing to strike again. The second and third Zarkonian stations fell just as easily as the first. Each time, the U.S. Defiant struck quickly and vanished before reinforcements arrived. Each time, they left the same message, 50,000 lives. We remember. Back on the ship, the crew gathered to plan their next move. Their success had boosted their confidence, but they knew the Zarkonians would be looking for them now. 3 major communication hubs disabled, said Alan, updating the tactical display. Zarkonian military ships are scattered and confused. They can't coordinate their movements. Commander Martinez nodded. Good. What's our next target? Peter pulled up an image of a massive space dock. This is where they're building their newest warships. Our intelligence says they have 5 almost ready to launch. If we take out those ships, Olivia added, we set their military expansion back by at least 2 years. Lisa studied the image closely. The security will be tighter after our first attacks. They'll be expecting something. Then we'll do something unexpected, Martin said. He pointed to a small moon nearby. What's this? Peter zoomed in on the moon. It's their fuel processing station. All ships in that sector get their fuel from there. A slow smile spread across Martinez's face. Then that's our target. No fuel, no ships. As they prepared for the next mission, a message arrived from Earth. Admiral Grant's face appeared on the main screen. Commander Martinez, excellent work on those communication hubs. The President sends her congratulations. Thank you, sir. We're preparing for our next strike now. The Admiral nodded. There's something else you should know. Earth forces are mobilizing everywhere. Colonies that have been hiding their military strength for years are now revealing what they have. The screen changed to show footage from across human space. Ships of all sizes were gathering. Some were old mining vessels converted to carry weapons. Others were sleek new destroyers that had been built in secret underground facilities. Civilians were volunteering by the thousands. The attack on New Terra changed everything, Admiral Grant continued. For years, we've appeared peaceful to avoid looking like a threat. Now, humanity is united like never before. Martinez felt a surge of pride. What are our orders, sir? Continue your mission. While you strike at key military targets, our main fleet is preparing for larger engagements. The Zarkonians still don't know how many ships we actually have. After the call ended, Martinez addressed his crew. You heard the Admiral. We're not alone in this fight anymore. The journey to the fuel moon took 6 hours. When they arrived, they found it heavily guarded. 4 Zarkonian warships patrolled the area. They're expecting us, Alan said, watching the patrols. Martinez studied the situation. Can we still get close enough to hit the fuel depot? Yes, but we'd have to drop our cloak to fire, Olivia explained. They'd see us immediately. What if we don't fire at all? Lisa suggested. Everyone turned to look at her. The fuel is highly unstable. If we could create a power surge in their own systems. Peter nodded excitedly. I could send a virus through their network. Make their own safety systems overload. Do it, Martinez ordered. Peter's fingers flew across his console as he created and sent the virus. Minutes passed in tense silence. Suddenly, alarms blared across the Zarkonian facility. The fuel processing systems began to overload. The Zarkonian ships broke patrol to help, but it was too late. A series of explosions rippled across the moon's surface. The fuel depot erupted in a massive fireball that lit up the darkness of space. No direct attack, Martinez said with satisfaction. We used their own systems against them. The Defiant moved away, undetected, as Zarkonian commanders tried to figure out what had happened. On their main military channel, the same message appeared once more. 50,000 lives. We remember. News of this fourth strike spread quickly through Earth's networks. In homes, bars, and gathering places across human space, people watched the footage. For the first time since the massacre, they cheered. Humanity was fighting back. Supreme Commander Vector slammed his fist on the table, cracking its shiny surface. The other Zarkonian leaders flinched. Reports of the fuel depot explosion had just reached the War Council. 4 attacks in 2 days, Vector growled. The humans are making us look weak. We still don't know how they're avoiding our sensors, said General Kraz, who had witnessed the massacre broadcast. Their technology should not be this advanced. Vector's yellow eyes narrowed. They'd been deceiving us, pretending to be less developed than they are. He stood up straight. No more waiting. Launch the counteroffensive, Target all human outposts within our reach. Across Zarkonian space, their ships began to move. Their target, a human mining colony on the edge of the Orient sector. But Earth was ready. Heather Collins checked her fighter ship one last time. 6 months ago, she had been a teacher on New Terra Colony. Now she was part of Earth's defense force at Orient Outpost. Her husband and daughter had died in the massacre. She had watched it happen on the live broadcast. All pilots to launch stations, came the order. Zarkonian fleet approaching. This is not a drill. Heather climbed into her fighter. It was a new model, one of many that had been hidden from alien eyes until now. Small, fast, and deadly. "Remember your training," said the squadron leader through the comm. "They expect us to be easy targets. Let's show them how wrong they are." 50 fighters launched from hidden bays around the mining colony. To the approaching Zarkonians, it looked like the outpost was undefended. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The Zarkonian attack fleet consisted of 15 warships. Large, powerful, but slow. They moved toward the colony, weapons charge. "Attack formation," Heather's squadron leader ordered. "Execute pattern Delta." The human fighters swarmed the much larger Zarkonian ships. They moved in ways the Zarkonians had never seen before, darting in close, firing precision shots at engines and weapon systems, then breaking the way before the Zarkonians could target them. Heather followed 2 other fighters toward the Lid Zarkonian ship, her targeting computer locked onto its main engine. She fired. The shot hit perfectly, sending the massive ship spinning. "Engine disabled," she reported, moving to next target. Across the battlefield, human fighters were doing the same. For every fighter the Zarkonians managed to hit, 5 more appeared. The Zarkonian commanders had expected an easy victory against a helpless mining colony. Instead, they found themselves surrounded and outmaneuvered. 2 hours later, the battle was over. 10 Zarkonian ships had been disabled. 3 had retreated. 2 had been destroyed when they refused to surrender. On the main Zarkonian command ship, Admiral Drez watched the disaster unfold on his screens. "Impossible," he muttered. "Where did they get these ships? These tactics?" His communication officer looked up with fear in his eyes. "Sir, we're receiving reports of similar defeats in 6 other sectors. The humans were waiting for us everywhere." Meanwhile, the U.S. Defiant had returned to Earth for a brief resupply. Commander Martinez and his team were called to a meeting with President Douglas. "Your strikes have been successful beyond our expectations," the president said. "The Zarkonians are off balance. They just tried to attack 7 of our outposts and were defeated at every one." Martinez nodded. "Our hidden fleet is performing well." "Yes, but the Zarkonians are not finished," President Douglas warned. "Our intelligence reports they're preparing something bigger, a superweapon aimed at our main colony on Europa." Lisa Wright looked up from the reports she was studying. "Europa has over 2 million people. They wouldn't. They killed 50,000 without hesitation," the president said grimly. "They would absolutely target 2 million. Martinez stood straighter. "What are our orders?" "Find that superweapon. Stop it before it can be used." The president's eyes were hard. "You've proven you can hit them anywhere. Now we need you to hit them where it really hurts." The crew of the Defiant exchanged determined looks. Their next mission would be the most dangerous yet, but the stakes couldn't be higher. Martinez nodded firmly. "We won't let you down." The U.S. Defiant moved silently through Zarkonian space. Their mission was the most dangerous yet: find and destroy the superweapon before it could target Europa colony. "Any sign of it?" Commander Martinez asked, studying the star map. Peter Lee shook his head. "Nothing on regular scans, but I've been analyzing their communication patterns. There's unusual activity around the Nexus system." "Show me," Martinez ordered. The screen displayed a small star system with 3 planets. Peter pointed to the second one. "They've been sending supplies and scientists to this moon. The energy readings are off the charts." Lisa leaned forward. "I recognize that pattern. It's similar to the weapon test data I saw at Proxima Station, but much larger. Martinez made his decision. That's our target. Alan, set course for the Nexus system. Olivia, prepare all weapons. We may not get a second chance at this. As they approached, they saw it. A massive weapon platform orbiting the moon. It looked like a giant metal spider, with a central hub and 8 long arms extending outward. At the end of each arm was a focusing crystal larger than the Defiant itself. Life signs? Martinez asked. Over 300, Peter confirmed, and at least 20 ships guarding it. Martinez frowned. This was too heavily defended for a direct attack. They needed a new plan. Can we get closer without being detected? Not close enough to fire, Alan said, but maybe close enough to send a team. Martinez nodded. Then that's what we'll do. I'll lead a small team to board the weapon. The rest of you keep the ship ready for a quick escape. 4 hours later, Martinez, Lisa, Peter, and 2 security officers were in a small shuttle approaching the weapon platform. They wore stolen Zarkonian worker uniforms. Remember, Martinez said quietly, we find the control center, plant the charges, and get out. No unnecessary risks. They docked at a maintenance port, and Lisa used her knowledge of Zarkonian systems to bypass the security. They slipped inside, moving through dark corridors filled with pipes and wires. The main control should be 2 levels up, Lisa whispered, checking the stolen datapad. They moved carefully, avoiding Zarkonian workers. Peter used a small device to loop security camera feeds so they wouldn't be seen. Finally, they reached a door marked with Zarkonian symbols. Lisa translated, Primary Control Center. Get ready, Martinez whispered. They burst through the door, stunning the 3 Zarkonians inside before they could raise an alarm. Peter immediately went to the main computer. I need 5 minutes to download the weapon specs and plant the virus, he said, fingers flying over the controls. Make it 3, Martinez replied, keeping watch at the door. Suddenly, alarms began to sound throughout the station. We've been detected, one of the security officers warned. Keep working, Martinez told Peter. Lisa, help me barricade the door. They had just finished blocking the entrance when a voice came over the station's communication system. Humans, we know you are aboard. Surrender now. Martinez recognized that voice. Supreme Commander Vextor. The one who ordered the attack on New Terra, Lisa said, her face pale. The door shook as Zarkonians tried to force it open. Almost done, Peter called out. Martinez prepared his weapon. As soon as he's finished, we fight our way back to the shuttle. The door burst open. Zarkonian soldiers poured in, but stopped when they saw Martinez's team had weapons aimed at the control panels. Supreme Commander Vextor pushed through his soldiers. He was taller than the others, with a scar across his face and cold yellow eyes. Commander Martinez, he said, yes, we know who you are. Did you think we wouldn't be tracking your ship after your attacks? Martinez kept his weapon steady. We know what you're planning. A strike on Europa. Vextor smiled, showing sharp teeth. Just the beginning. Your species needs to learn its place. 50,000 wasn't enough for you. Lisa asked, anger in her voice. A small demonstration, Vextor replied. This weapon will show the true power of the Zarkonian Empire. Done, Peter whispered to Martinez. Martinez stepped forward, facing Vextor directly. You made one mistake. You thought we were weak because we were peaceful. He pressed a hidden button on his wrist. Throughout the station, small explosives they had placed during their approach began to detonate. But now you know, Martinez continued as chaos erupted around them. Earth won't stand for this. Chaos erupted on the weapon platform. The explosions were small but strategic, taking out key systems and creating the perfect distraction. Vextor shouted orders as his soldiers scrambled to respond. Get to the shuttle. Martinez commanded his team. They fired stun blasts at the Zarkonian soldiers, pushing their way through the corridor. Vextor aimed his weapon at Martinez, but Lisa knocked his arm aside. The blast hit the wall instead. "You'll pay for that, human," Vextor snarled. More explosions rocked the station. The team fought their way back toward the maintenance dock where their shuttle waited. "Commander," Peter called out, "I found something in their systems before I planted the virus. Files about why they attacked New Terra." "Tell me later," Martins replied, stunning two more guards. "Focus on getting out alive." They reached the shuttle just as Zarkonian reinforcements arrived. The security officers held them back while the others boarded. One officer was hit and fell. Martins pulled him inside before sealing the door. "Alan, we need extraction." Martinez called through the comm as the shuttle launched. "We have wounded and we're being pursued." "On my way," came the response. "Hang tight." The shuttle raced away from the weapon platform, with 3 Zarkonian fighters in pursuit. Laser fire streaked past them, too close for comfort. "We can't outrun them," Lisa said, checking the injured officer's wound. Peter was still looking at the data he had stolen. "Commander, you need to see this. The attack on New Terra wasn't just about us. It was a message to other species too." Martinez glanced at the screen Peter held. "What do you mean?" "The Zarkonians have been threatening other civilizations, keeping them in line through fear. They chose humans as an example because we were expanding quickly." Peter scrolled through more files. "They've been manipulating interspecies relations for decades, keeping everyone divided." A blast rocked their shuttle. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. "Where's our extraction?" Martins demanded. As if answering, the U.S. Defiant appeared, dropping its cloak. It fired precise shots, disabling the pursuing fighters without destroying them. "Shuttle, you are clear to dock," Ellen's voice came through. "Make it quick. More hostiles incoming." Once aboard, the Defiant immediately jumped to safety. The injured officer was taken to medical, while the others gathered on the bridge. "Did we stop the weapon?" Olivia asked. Martinez nodded. "Peter's virus will keep it offline for at least a week, and the explosives damage several key components. They won't be targeting Europa anytime soon." "But that's not all," Peter said, connecting his data pad to the main screen. "Look at what I found." The screen filled with Zarkonian plans and communications, evidence of their manipulation of other species, records of threats made against allies who considered helping humans. "They've been playing everyone against each other," Lisa said, scanning the documents, "making sure no one forms alliances that could challenge them." Martinez studied the information. "We need to get this to Earth immediately. And not just Earth. Every species they've been threatening needs to see this." "I can create a broadcast package," Peter offered. "Something that can't be blocked by Zarkonian jammers." "Do it," Martinez ordered. "Lisa, help him make sure the translation is clear for all species." While they worked, Martinez checked on his injured officer, then returned to the bridge. He stared at the tactical display showing the damaged weapon platform growing smaller behind them. "Set course for the nearest neutral space station," he told Alan. "We're going to send a message that the Zarkonians can't stop." Hours later, their broadcast package was ready. It contained not only the evidence of Zarkonian manipulation, but also footage of human ships defending their colonies and the U.S. Defiant's successful missions. "This will change everything," Lisa said as they prepared to transmit. "Other species will see that the Zarkonians can be fought." Martinez nodded. "And they'll see that humans aren't the easy target the Zarkonians thought we were." Peter pressed the final command. "Broadcasting now." The message went out across all channels, to every corner of known space. The truth about the Zarkonians, revealed for all to see. And with it, a simple statement. 50,000 lives. "We remember. Earth stands together, and we invite all free species to stand with us." 3 weeks after the broadcast, representatives from 27 alien civilizations gathered at Earth's main space station. Species that had never spoken to each other now sat side by side, united by a common purpose. President Douglas stood at the center of the circular chamber. Thank you for coming. For years, the Zarkonian Empire has kept us divided through fear and manipulation. That ends today. On the screens around the room, images showed Zarkonian ships retreating from battles across the galaxy. The broadcast had changed everything. Species that had once bowed to Zarkonian demands now fought back, sharing technology and strategies. The Zarkonians have called for peace talks. President Douglas continued. They know they cannot fight all of us together. A tall, blue-skinned alien stood. The Ventari people stand with Earth. Your courage inspired us to break free from Zarkonian control. Other representatives voiced similar support. The alliance that the Zarkonians had feared for so long was becoming real before their eyes. Commander Martinez watched from the side of the room. The U.S. Defiant had become famous for its strikes against Zarkonian targets. His crew sat with him, proud of what they had accomplished. "Commander," said a voice behind him. Martinez turned to see Susan Clark, Earth's chief diplomat. "The Zarkonians have arrived for the negotiations," she said. "They're asking for you to be present." Martinez followed her to a smaller meeting room. Inside waited Supreme Commander Vextor, flanked by Zarkonian officials. They looked less confident than when Martinez had seen them on the weapon platform. "Commander," Vextor said stiffly, "your actions have caused complications for the Empire. 50,000 lives cause more than complications for us," Martinez replied. President Douglas entered, followed by representatives from the new alliance. "Let's begin," she said. "These negotiations are simple. The Zarkonian Empire will withdraw from all occupied territories. You will pay reparations for the lives lost at New Terra, and those responsible for ordering the attack will face justice." Vextor's eyes narrowed. "You expect us to surrender everything we've built?" "We expect you to face the consequences of your actions," Douglas replied firmly. "You thought killing 50,000 humans would make us weak. Instead, it united not just humanity, but half the galaxy against you." The negotiations continued for hours. Finally, the Zarkonians agreed to most demands, though they fought hard against handing over those responsible for the massacre. "We cannot surrender our leadership," Vextor insisted. Martinez stepped forward. "You broadcast the deaths of our people like it was entertainment. Justice will be broadcast too." In the end, the Zarkonians had no choice. Their military was in retreat. Their allies had abandoned them. The empire that had seemed so powerful was crumbling. 1 month later, Martinez stood with Lisa on the newly rebuilt New Terra colony. The memorial to the 50,000 stood at its center. A simple wall with every name carved in stone. Flowers and personal items left by families lined its base. "Do you think it's really over?" Lisa asked, looking at the memorial. "The fighting? Yes. The rebuilding? That's just beginning." Martinez touched one of the names on the wall. "But we showed them what humans do when pushed too far." Lisa nodded. "Not just humans. Look." She pointed to the sky where ships from a dozen different species were arriving for the memorial ceremony. Species that had once avoided each other now worked together, building something new from the ashes of conflict. On a nearby screen, news showed the trial of Zarkonian leaders, including Vextor. Justice was being served. Ambassador John Miller, who had survived imprisonment, was there to witness it. Earth remembered, Lisa said softly. And now the galaxy will never forget. Martinez looked out at the colony, where humans were building new homes and planting gardens. Children played in parks that had been rubble months before. Life continuing, despite everything. "That's what they never understood about us," he said. "We don't just fight when we're attacked. We rebuild. We grow stronger." As the sun set over New Terra, lights came on throughout the colony. From space, it would look like a constellation of stars, a beacon of resilience in the darkness. 50,000 lives have been lost. They would always be remembered, and because of them, the galaxy had changed forever.